There was a staff rebellion inside Trump's campaign after his unbelievably racist performance at the National Association of Black Journalists. There were a lot of people who thought he could control himself, and he went on stage and was completely throwing haymakers, and they weren't connecting except to his own jaw.
Well, as we approach the US presidential election this November, every week on Times Radio, we're speaking to big political heavyweights and thinkers, the best analysts from the US, about all that's happening on the road to the White House. And today we're joined by Rick Wilson, Republican strategist, founder of the Lincoln Project. Rick, hello, welcome to the programme.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to speak to you. Right, we must talk about then the drama, the excitement, the moment of the week. Tim Walz being picked by Kamala Harris to run as her vice presidential candidate. What's he done for Kamala Harris by being her running mate?
Well, I think he accomplishes several things. First off, he codes socially as somebody who came up from the middle class. He's not an elitist. He's not a coastal liberal. He is a Midwestern prairie populist. He is a guy who has a lot of things in his background that scan for moderate and independent and even some Republican voters as things they like. Military service. He's been a high school football coach. He's been a public school teacher. He is a guy who, is a lot like them. He, does ice fishing. He goes deer hunting and bird hunting. He's not, he doesn't fall into that sort of MAGA stereotype of the effete coastal liberal. I think that helps her ticket a lot. He also brings a sense of excitement and joy, and he's a happy warrior, as we say in the U.S. And that is something that, Trump and J.D. Vance are both fundamentally kind of grumpy creatures. They're not having fun doing this. They're not enjoying this contest. And Walz was already having a ball last night. He was really enjoying himself, and he's connected with, I think, the Democratic moment that Kamala Harris has been enjoying as she has had such a big uplift since the day Joe Biden decided that he would step aside in her favor.
Are we at risk with all of this, Rick, of becoming victims, if we're not already, of the Twitterification of a US presidential campaign? I say that because Tim Walz is the subject of many memes, of many clips, many sound bites, many moments. And I'm just wondering if there is substance to that, or if we are witnessing a shallow campaign that is being built around a kind of character.
Look, just because the social media now dominates American political life doesn't take away from the fact that Tim Walz is a real person. He's got depth. He's got character. He's an interesting individual. But, we live in the world that is not the one we want. And so social media is a big part of our political lives. It's a big part of our public dialogue. It's a big part of the way that Americans digest and disseminate news. And so, he'll give as good as he gets on social media. There will be things poking him, and he'll poke back. There will be people criticizing him. He'll criticize back. There'll be people praising him. And I think that, we have to just understand that while it's unpleasant sometimes, and while it feels like we've stepped away from more considered discussions about issues and politics, that's not new. This is been going downhill for 10 years now as social media has taken on a larger and larger role in American life.
In terms of the Trump campaign, I don't know if you agree with me, Rick. It feels like they've been a bit quieter these last few days. Would you agree with that the volume's been turned down a little, perhaps under the noise of the VP pick for Kamala Harris?
I think the biggest factor, there was a staff rebellion inside Trump's campaign after his unbelievably racist performance at the National Association of Black Journalists. There were a lot of people who thought he could control himself, and he went on stage and was completely throwing haymakers, and they weren't connecting except to his own jaw. So there are two factors driving it. First off, that very, very poor reaction to his first big foray after Vice President Harris entered the race. And the second factor is that Trump psychologically needs the big crowds. He needs to be the star. He needs to have the spotlight. And right now, he can't draw a crowd like Vice President Harris can draw. He can't fill an arena anymore like she can fill an arena at the drop of a hat. He can't get people as enthusiastic on his side of the equation as she can on hers. That is psychologically weighing very heavily on Donald Trump right now. We've heard a lot of stuff out of Mar-a-Lago. You know, a good campaign leaks on purpose, a bad campaign just leaks. And their campaign is leaking like the Titanic after a hit with an iceberg right now.
Really?
And they're all saying he's very angry that he's not in the center of the discussion. He's not in the center of the spotlight. He wants her out of the spotlight, and he doesn't know how to do it.
Why is that? He is so good at hogging the spotlight. Why is Harris proving to be such a difficulty?
You know, I think there are two big factors. It's a really terrific question. The first is she's not responding in kind to Trump. She's not playing his game. She's playing her game. So ordinarily throughout since 2015, Trump says something outrageous about a candidate. The candidate says that's outrageous. And then he says something more outrageous. Well, in her case, she's just laughing at him. She's saying, that's just Trump. He's being disruptive, moving on. And that has sent him into orbit. He hates that so much.
Let's speak to Joe Rossbers, lead digital strategist in both of Barack Obama's election campaigns. Joe, good afternoon. Great to speak to you.
Great to be here.
Thanks very much for joining us. Let's just get a reaction, first of all, to that first joint appearance of Harris and Walz. Did it land? Did it work?
I think it did. And I think for Vice President Harris to have pulled off the vetting and the decision-making on such a big decision in such a short time frame is a real testament to her readiness for the job. People have been speaking all yesterday and today about Tim Walz's remarkable career and personal journey. But I think even before you dig into that, you have to remember that this was her decision, and it was made under unprecedented circumstances, under incredible scrutiny, and surrounded by a cacophony of takes and theories and unsolicited advice. And she pulled it off, and it's landed brilliantly.
In terms of how you build up to this, Joe, I was keeping an eye on your own X feed in the run up to this. I was quite struck by the kind of preparation that has to go into these sorts of announcements from the campaign teams, because until whatever point it was yesterday afternoon, Kamala Harris had several people in the running for this, and immediately she announces it, campaign teams then have to spring into action in order that an event like last night can be pulled off. I mean, in your day working with Obama, was it literally prepare for any eventuality? It could be any of these potential candidates. We need to be ready for all of them.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really spring into action once the decision is made, because it's a deeply personal decision for the nominee to make, and it needs to be actioned right away. And so you really have to have sprung into action and prepared several different campaigns in waiting, running right from the graphics and the presentational elements to preparing all of the people who create content on behalf of the on behalf of the campaign about the biographies and positions and potential liabilities of any potential running mate. And so you really prepare, 2, 3, 4 campaigns in advance so that you're already rolling once the decision is actually made.
It's just astonishing, isn't it? I've just seen pictures in the last few minutes of Kamala Harris boarding, well, it'll be Air Force Two, to head around, I think it's 5 states that she's going to hit over the course of the next few days as well. How do you get the balance right between kind of solo appearances from both the presidential candidate and the vice presidential candidate and joint appearances? Is that very sort of state location dependent?
I think what you're seeing is a very energetic campaign from the Harris-Walz operation, and both of them will be traveling across many battleground states, and this contrasts very sharply with Donald Trump, who's sort of hanging out at his country club. And so I think more is more in terms of the presidential nominee, the vice presidential nominee, but also incredible surrogates, like we saw last night at the rally, Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania making a fantastic speech. There is incredible excitement from other elected officials all the way to the grassroots, to celebrities, to athletes, to ordinary folks just tuning into the election for the first time for this ticket, for this moment. And we've seen it in an unprecedented outpouring of grassroots energy in terms of grassroots donations and people signing up to volunteer. And the Harris-Walz campaign has a little over 90 days to turn it into the campaign that wins.
Yeah, here's a post from Barack Obama. Governor Walz doesn't just have the experience to be VP, he has the values and integrity to make us proud. Kamala and Tim will make a great team. I'm struck by that word integrity, because actually, is the campaign of Harris-Walz a continuation of where Biden had kind of started out? He was very much centering his campaign on protect democracy from Donald Trump. That was the sort of messaging. Integrity is a part of that. Is that a kind of continuation of the original Biden strategy?
I mean, I think it goes right back through Obama as well, right?
Sure.
This notion of and you see it in the Walz profile of a kind of non-toxic masculinity that reminds you of your favorite teacher or coach. And I think the tone that Vice President Harris sets with the just joy that she brings to the campaign trail and a real warmth is something that's underlined and emphasized by her running mate pick. And that's something that has been a real sea change for Democrats, as expressed in all the grassroots outpouring of energy, that there's this confidence and assurance that Vice President Harris has for Democrats over these last few weeks and over the next few months, that the message is don't worry and instead get to work because we need to do this together.
Yeah, it is fascinating, this sort of togetherness. Do you see that in the Trump-Vance ticket? What is their strategy and how do they work as a team?
I mean, unfortunately for the Republicans, J.D. Vance sort of underlines and emphasizes the creepiness of Donald Trump. And both of them are quite obsessed with other people's sex lives and doctors' offices, and really just an unfortunate error for the Republican Party if they want to have a chance to win this election. I think they've nominated two very odd gentlemen who really can't help themselves from revealing just how out of the mainstream and creepy they are. And I think what we see from the Harris and Walz ticket is not just the joy and warmth, but you have to remember that the favorite teacher, the favorite coach is also someone who you trust to have accountability for themselves, for the people around them, and that if they see something's wrong, that they're going to make it right. And I think that's what Democrats and independents who are flocking to the Harris-Walz ticket are expecting from them vis-a-vis Trump and Vance.
Joe Rospers, one of the founders of Blue State Digital, chief strategist for Elizabeth Warren in 2020, and digital strategist and advisor for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012. Thank you very much. Great to speak to you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Good to have you on. That is Joe Rospers.